The Denver Broncos have reset the clock on the quarterback position. Russell Wilson has officially been released effective the new league year. Why must Sean Payton get quarterback right this offseason? We'll break it down and much more on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos Country? Welcome into a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much to everybody in Broncos Country, all the everydayers out there for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Every single day, you can get Locked on Broncos free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. So do us a favor, hit that subscribe or that follow button down below so you never miss out on what's going on with your favorite team every single day, all year long. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined alongside, as always, by Sayre Bedinger, site expert, proudlyorange.com. We got some breaking news here to kick off today's bonus episode of the show. Broncos Country, it is official. The Broncos have announced that they are releasing quarterback Russell Wilson effective on March 13th, next Wednesday, when the new league year kicks into effect. There's a whole bunch of ripple effects that are going to come of this, but now the news is official, and now the Broncos must focus on the future. And for Broncos head coach Sean Payton, he must get quarterback right.
He does have to get quarterback right, Cody. Obviously, this is a tremendous amount of pressure that he's putting on himself to make sure he gets it right. With Russell Wilson having 2 years effectively of guaranteed money left on his deal, really the biggest motivating factor for the Broncos getting out of this deal with Russ, aside from on-field play not being up to what they deem to be the standard, is the fact that he had $37 million guaranteed for 2025 as of March 17 this year. So the Broncos already on the hook for $39 million cash for Russell Wilson in 2024, did not want to pay that additional $37 million in guaranteed money for 2025 based on what they've seen these first two seasons. Now, Sean Payton came in. A lot of people said, hey, Sean, if anybody can fix Russell Wilson based on what we had seen in 2022 with Nathaniel Hackett as the head coach, if anyone could fix him, people said it's got to be Sean Payton, right? So we come out and we see Russell have a much better season last year, but it still ended with him getting benched for the final two games. And that's really where we kind of felt like the writing was on the wall, that Russ was eventually not going to be on this team anymore, even though there was some rumors that maybe he could come back, maybe they could patch things up. The Broncos are going a different direction in 2024 and beyond. Russell Wilson, Cody, this era, I think it's fair to say, is this the worst trade in NFL history? You and I celebrated this trade almost exactly 2 years ago. Now we're talking about, is it the worst in league history?
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for us. I think it's unfortunate for Russ. I think it's unfortunate for the Broncos. I think it's more unfortunate for the fan base because what has been the issue? Quarterback since Peyton Manning. Russell Wilson was supposed to be the guy. Now, granted, it's not a lot on Russell Wilson why things didn't work out in Denver. I think we have to make that very clear. Denver it just didn't seem like the two sides meshed well between Sean Payton and what Russ was able to do. Russ got improved play this season. He's going to hit the free agency market. And look, I think he still has a lot of good football left to play. Maybe he will go to a much better environment than maybe where Denver is at in terms of what he can do well and maybe some of the playmakers around him, right? But this is big. Denver is moving on after just 2 seasons. And the pill that you have to swallow with that, when you mention looking in hindsight about it being the worst trade in NFL history, when you look at the overall value, you look at the haul that Denver gave up to get Russell Wilson, it's tough in hindsight, right? But at the time, you mentioned it. We celebrated it. Broncos Country celebrated it. Broncos fans were about ready to build the statue outside of Empower Field for George Payton. It's unfortunate it didn't work out. This is the NFL side, though, right? This is business. You see this happen all the time. And unfortunately for Broncos Country, it's at their expense of now they're back in the market. Now they're having to look for another quarterback here. It's just a bummer it didn't work out for either sides. And look, I want to wish Russell Wilson the best, Sayre, because not a lot of people, look, you see it on social media all the time. This is a guy who posts a family picture. He gets a lot of hateful comments in there as well. Russ is a great human being, did a lot for me behind the scenes. Look, he and I talked about a lot of football, but Russ this past year really helped me out with a lot of things as I was dealing with a tough year in my life. Great human being. So folks, understand it, it didn't work out. It sucks for both sides, but don't be bashful. Don't be like distasteful about it. Russ did a lot of good stuff on the field. He did a lot of good stuff off the field. Ultimately, It didn't match the standard where the Broncos were going and where Sean Payton wanted to hitch his wagon to as he looks to try to build out the most of the 4 years left on his contract to try to help the Broncos win a Super Bowl. He felt like that was not going to be the case with Russell Wilson, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is. We talked about this when Sean Payton was hired last offseason, Cody. We said multiple times on this show, there's no way that he's going to accept the job in Denver if they say you have to work with Russell Wilson for the duration of this contract. And when Sean Payton was hired, I think we knew at that point that the clock was potentially ticking on Russell Wilson. He was going to need to have the bounce back season of all bounce back seasons in order to stick around, because the price to keep him is obviously substantial. The Broncos now eating not only $39 million this year in cash that he's guaranteed, but $85 million dead salary cap over the next 2 seasons. We assume at this point, because there's been no official reports as the time we're recording this, which is pretty much right after the news came in, you assume that Russell Wilson will be a post June 1st cut designation. What does that mean? That doesn't mean he's going to be on the Broncos roster until June 1st. It just means that the financial ramifications of cutting Russ will not go into effect until June 1. And so the Broncos, they're going to be on the hook for $35.4 million in salary cap space this year and potentially over $50 million next year, based on what we see from some reports and speculation that's out there already, Cody. So to me, that shows how committed this ownership is to Sean Payton, because really you don't sign off on something like this. You're not saying we're going to pay $39 million or close to $39 million for Russell Wilson to play for somebody else unless you really believe that the head coach has a great vision in place. I guarantee you behind the scenes, there's things happening that Sean Payton went to the Walton Penner ownership group and said, like, this is what we're going to do. This is our plan. This is what we have in place. This is what you can expect this offseason. Not that everything's always going to turn out the way that you want or hope, but man, there has to be a plan in place for the ownership group to sign off on a historic cut like this. This is $85 million in dead cap. Cody, to say that's never been done before would be an understatement of understatements. It's more than double the most dead cap any team has ever incurred on one individual player. It's crazy.
Now the pressure mounts for Sean Payton to get quarterback right, and it's something that he must do. We'll dive deeper into what that looks like here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's episode, Locked On Broncos, is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, and FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. And get buckets today as the NBA season continues to roll on here into the second half as teams are looking to make their playoff push. Seeding is important. Tiebreakers are coming down to the wire of the NBA season, and FanDuel is a place where you can get in on all the action, including the play-in action that will come up toward the end of the season. Because right now, new customers, they get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. You place a $5 bet, your bet wins as a brand new customer at FanDuel Sportsbook. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, with live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Check it out. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing that we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? Would you spend more time with the people that you love? How would you balance career and also just life in general? We always ask ourselves those questions. I know I ask myself that question from time to time, and the best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and to make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it, and that's where BetterHelp can come in. I've utilized BetterHelp therapy in the past. I filled out a brief questionnaire. I got matched with the therapist within minutes, and then I scheduled a session. Luckily, I hit it off really well with my therapist as she worked to help me identify tools that I can use to battle the anxiety that I have, stress, and to be able to be more effective with my time as I try to balance career and life. It happens to all of us. I get on camera a lot of times. I'm excited. I have a lot of energy. Sometimes I'm putting on a fake smile. I'm putting on a mask here. BetterHelp helps me find a way to manage all the things that are beyond my control and helps me understand what I can do to put myself in control. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and best of all, suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
The Denver Broncos are all in on the QB of the future. Unfortunately, we don't know who that's going to be at this point. We'll have to wait and see Sean Payton's vision for this team unfolding over the course of the offseason as the news of Russell Wilson being released as of March 13 effectively has come out. And Cody and I are excited to bring you every bit of Broncos news over the course of this offseason, including some surprise pop-up episodes just like this one. We can't appreciate you enough, or say how much we thank you enough, but for listening to Locked On Broncos every single day, wherever you get your podcast, however you listen, whenever you listen. Hey, for rocking with us, we thank you so much for doing that right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And Cody, this is obviously shocking news. I mean, we knew kind of this was coming. The writing's been on the wall. Russell Wilson no longer going to be the quarterback in Denver. The question everybody now has is, who the heck is going to be the quarterback in Denver, right? And I think that there's so many different options. We've talked about the draft. We've talked about free agency. We've talked about trades. Ultimately, the Broncos are committed to some vision that has probably been pitched to the ownership group, and they're going full head of steam right into it this offseason.
Based on what we saw at the NFL Scouting Combine, the press conferences from George and Sean Payton, we know that, hey, Denver, Sean Payton, George Payton, they must get quarterback right this year. I don't think they can wait a year. Sean's got 4 years left on his deal. The pressure is now. You make the big move to eat $85 million in dead cap from a guy you traded for 2 years ago. You can't just say, all right, we're going to hope we get something of resemblance that's going to help us compete, and then we're going to really focus on the position going into next year. That cannot be the strategy here. And that's obviously, I think, a risk. Like for Sean Payton, he's attaching his legacy to this decision here. And ultimately, we'll find out maybe 4, 5, 6 years from now whether or not it was the right decision. But Sean's got to get QB right here. And I think where that comes from, it has to be in the NFL draft. You and I have talked about this. I think a wide consensus of Broncos fans who watch and listen to the show, they want Denver to go out in the draft and get a QB. Now, there's a wide variety of different names, right? The J.J. McCarthy's, the Michael Penix Jr.'s, the Jaden Daniels, the Bo Nixes of the world. Some people even want them to get Drake May, which doesn't seem like a really valuable thing for them to be able to do right now. Caleb Williams probably not in the mix here. At this point in time, Sayre, where do you think that Denver goes? Because as I think about when you mentioned George Payton, Sean Payton talking to the Walton Penner family ownership group about their plan, the only thing I could think of was that Malcolm in the Middle thing from Dewey where he says, the future is now, old man. And Sean Payton, he's got to get it right here.
He does. He does have to get it right. And I can't imagine what vision he's pitched to the ownership group that really sold them on, all right, we're willing to let you do what you need to do with Russell Wilson. Because, Cody, to be honest with you, this the way that Russ played most of last year, I think a lot of fans are wondering, like, why was that not good enough? What was it that he didn't do that Sean Payton benched him and has seemingly kind of alienated him and burned that bridge? The Broncos were in the bottom 10 of the NFL last year in passes that went for first down. They were not an efficient group passing the ball at all this past season. And you can blame a number of different things on that. But ultimately, when it comes to passing efficiency, the ability to have a balanced offensive attack, converting on third downs, that was not there for the Broncos passing game. The middle of the field, we talked about it at the end of the season. That wasn't available most of the time. The Broncos did not have a great passing game and structure. So there's things that, man, when you look at what happened and why it happened, yes, Russ threw a lot of touchdowns, made a lot of clutch plays last year and deserves his flowers for doing so. There were some great moments in 2023. It just wasn't good enough to be able to be sustained going forward. And so with that in mind, is a rookie going to be able to come in and give the Walton Penner ownership group what they want in terms of, hey, we expect more than 8 wins. You improved up to 8 wins last year. We expect it to be better in 2024. Can a rookie do that? Matter of fact, Sean Payton's never had a rookie starting for his team as an NFL head coach. Kind of a crazy factoid. He's never had a first or second round draft pick at the quarterback position that he's, drafted himself and worked with. So it's really going to be a fascinating process for everybody. Sean Payton seems to prefer the retread quarterbacks. George Payton, historically speaking, his better acquisitions have been the retread variety. I don't know, Cody. The Broncos, the Broncos franchise history, the Peyton Manning move, Jake Plummer, recent franchise history, the better guys the Broncos have brought in have previously played for other teams. So I'm fascinated to see what that means. And if Sean does love somebody in this draft, man, you better be able to make sure that you go get him and that you don't miss out on him, because now you've put yourself in a position to be caught kind of in a precarious situation.
One thing we do know about Sean that apparently he likes in his younger quarterbacks, and like in something that he's looking for, not just his younger quarterbacks, what he wants his quarterbacks to be able to do, right? We hear the term great processor, right? So that means being able to diagnose coverages at split second. Okay, when the safety rolls down, what changes? Where's the open man going to be? And can you deliver, right? Obviously, accuracy has to be a thing, like the quick passing game. He had Drew Brees, who was very effective. To be able to hit up the middle of the field has to be another requirement that he is looking for. Do any of these guys in the NFL draft have that? I'm very curious to see how they feel. I know fans feel a certain way about JJ McCarthy. I know they feel a certain way about Bo Nix. Like, there's differing opinions here, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we want. And it ultimately doesn't matter like who the fans want. It's going to boil down to who does Sean Payton and George Payton have conviction on. And it seems like they're going to find a way to make that happen. I would be thoroughly shocked, and I think I would be disappointed, Sayre, to be honest with you, if Denver went the free agency route and signed a quarterback that, let's say, wasn't Kirk Cousins. And I don't think Kirk Cousins would be the solution for what Denver needs at the position. He's another free agent coming off of a major injury here. You talk about his age. You talk about the financial aspect. I don't think that gives Denver what they need for the long term, and that's what Denver has to get right here in this offseason. A long-term solution at quarterback, and the best bet is a young guy there. In Broncos Country, we want to hear from you here on today's breaking news episode of Locked On Broncos. The Russell Wilson release is official, effective on March 13th, 2 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time when the new league year rolls around. Denver is heading in a different direction, and they must get it right. Who do you have your eye on for the Broncos, whether that be in the NFL draft or NFL free agency? Let us know here on the Locked On Broncos podcast. But now the stakes are bigger for the Broncos this offseason. Sayre and myself will have you covered every step of the way here, Broncos Country. In tomorrow's episode of the show, here's what you can expect. Sayre and I, we take a look at the offensive tackle position. If Denver moves on from Garrett Bowles, what are some options in the NFL draft and free agency that they could take a look at? You'll get that and much more on tomorrow's brand new episode of the show. We'll see you then.